nach der Kaffeepause. Hier geht es jetzt weiter in dem Media 2.0 Track mit Nate Elliot, Research Director von Jupiter Research, zum Thema, wie nutze ich Social Media für mein Marketing. Ja, das ist jetzt das nächste Thema, was hier kommt.
I like that music. Thank you very much, Bjorn. Every time I hear the music, I want to start doing a little dance, but that would be really embarrassing, especially because they're taping all of this. Good afternoon. My name's Nate Elliot. As Bjorn said, I'm a research director. I work for Jupiter Research, and I'm here today to talk about what I've called marketing in real time, but really about how we see marketers right now using social platforms, social media to reach out to consumers, what they're doing to take advantage of these platforms, to interact with users, to get users to engage with their brands, how well it's working, and then some information that we've learned from our research in terms of how to make it work better. So for those of you who don't know, well, I'll tell you the agenda first. First, I'm going to talk to you about how social media impacts marketing. We've done some research on exactly what the impacts have been and how social media has started to change the dynamic between marketers and consumers. And I won't spend too much time on that because I'm going to assume that we're all on the same page with that one, that there are some fundamental changes happening. So once we've looked at that, I'm going to talk about the two problems with social marketing. Right now, there's still two really big problems that we have to solve before we make social marketing work. And so finally, I'll walk through the 3 rules of social marketing that we've discovered so far, taking a look at the research we've done and finding the lessons that we can use to help marketers do a better job reaching out to consumers through these platforms. In case anyone doesn't know who Jupiter Research is, we're an independent firm. We provide unbiased research and analysis and advice about the internet and emerging platforms. We're based in New York, but I'm based in Berlin. We have a big European coverage. We've been around for 20 years, and most of what we do is based on consumer surveys and executive surveys and forecasts. And so just before I jump into the presentation, I'll say we survey about 10,000 executives across Europe and the United States every year in a variety of different fields, but we're always looking for more people to talk to make sure we get representation from each European country. And so if any of you would like to be part of our survey panel, please send me an email. Surveys are pretty short, and if you fill out a survey, then you get a free copy of the research. So we give you a free copy of all the survey results. There's my email address, and you'll see it again at the end of the presentation. But just to start, I'll point out that social media is pretty big, right? I mean, I think we all understand that. I think we all agree on that. But according to our surveys, every week in Europe, more than 30 million people use social networking sites. More than 30 million Europeans tell us they go to one of these sites every day. And in fact, more people, or a higher percentage of the online population in the UK goes to social networks than even in the US, where obviously these things had a little bit of a head start. You can see what the numbers are like across some of the rest of Europe. But that's pretty big. And remember, this is only one kind of social media, right? We've heard a lot today from other sessions about different kinds of social platforms. This is just one of them. And already we've got 30 million people doing it on a weekly basis. 1/3 of Europeans between the age of 15 and 24 are on these things every week. Most of them are on it every day. So we know this is big, and we know it's becoming more and more important for brands. And it's becoming more and more important for brands because social networks and social media have fundamentally changed how people interact with brands and how they interact with each other. We've gone from a situation where, as a marketer, you were putting a message out there and you were just promoting it to people. And that was usually the end of the story. Now, every now and then there was someone down here who was influential. They'd tell their friends what they liked or what to buy. They'd tell their family what they liked or what to buy. But there wasn't really any interaction between the consumers and the brands, and perhaps more importantly, there wasn't that much interaction between consumers. We think about influential consumers, but there weren't really that many of them before the internet, and these 2.0 technologies made it easy for consumers to interact with each other. But now, obviously, all this has changed. The marketers are talking to more and more people, and they're not just talking, they're starting to hear things back from consumers as well. And perhaps the bigger change is that the consumers have actually become more influential. It's amazing to think, but we actually have more influence in the world right now than we've ever had before. More people influence each other online than do offline. And that's something that's only really become possible in the last 5 years. We've done a lot of research recently tracking something that we call these new influentials. It's not me telling my parents what computer to buy. It's me posting something on my blog or writing something on Twitter saying, I have this computer and it's really good, you should have a look at it. It's a different kind of influence. It's not as strong a kind of influence. If I tell my parents what computer to buy, they're probably going to buy exactly the one I tell them to. If I put it on my blog or I tweet it, people may not buy exactly that computer, but maybe they'll add it to their consideration set. But there's more influence right now, thanks to these new technologies, than we've ever seen in the world before. And as a company, that means that you have to be part of the conversation. No matter what you do, when you put a message out there, people are going to take that message and make it their own. They're going to talk about your brand, your advertising, your marketing, everything about you. They're going to talk about it with each other, person to person, in person, offline, online, through social networks and blogs and Twitter and all these different formats. You have to be there and you have to be part of the conversation because those conversations are taking place about you and your brand, whether or not you're there. So we talk to marketers and say, obviously, you have to be part of the conversation, but there are still two really big problems that marketers haven't solved yet. There are two big problems with telling marketers, you have to be in there. You have to be part of this conversation. The first one is that most marketers have no idea how to use social media. Marketers don't understand how it works. Many of them, the majority of them, are afraid to use social marketing. Those who do use social marketing aren't doing it very well. We spent a number of months at the end of last year tracking a whole bunch of marketing campaigns on social networks here in Europe. And what we found is that half of all the branded social networking pages we tracked had 1,000 friends or less. Now, when you go to the social networks and you say, how much does it cost to buy one of these pages, they're pretty expensive, right? Most of these campaigns are running well over 100,000 euros. And so you go out and you spend 100,000 euros or more as a marketer, and you wind up with less than 1,000 friends, as most of them did. That's not a very successful social marketing campaign. But this is where we are right now. Even the marketers who've tried to be involved in these platforms simply haven't figured out how to make them work. There's a second problem as well. Beyond marketers not understanding the platform or being afraid to use the platform or using them and not using them very well, the second problem is most marketers have no idea how to measure social media and social marketing either. When we talk to marketers about what they're doing to evaluate the success of these campaigns, their answers are pretty scary. Because when we talk to marketers who specifically say their goal is to engage consumers online, more than 3/4 of them tell us that they don't actually try to measure whether they were successful in engaging users. So you've said, as a marketer, I'm going to go out and spend money online. My goal is to engage people online. But more than 3/4 of the time, those marketers aren't bothering to figure out whether or not they were successful. Now, I personally think that engagement's just a proxy for branding, right? When people talk about engagement, really, I think they're usually talking about creating awareness or creating recall or fostering positive brand perceptions or creating intent to purchase. When we talk to these same engagement marketers and ask them if they're measuring these brand metrics, only 15% of them say that they're measuring any kind of brand metrics. So there's this huge measurement gap in social marketing. Even the marketers who are out there doing this stuff aren't bothering. Either they don't know how to measure, they don't have the tools or the budget to measure. For whatever reason, they're not measuring this. They have no idea whether or not their campaigns are successful. These are huge problems. If no one knows how to use this stuff, and then no one knows how to measure this stuff, this platform might not go very far. If we don't solve these problems, then all this great social marketing you've heard people talking about today simply may not ever really work out. Because if I don't know how to use it and I don't know how to measure it, I can't be successful as a marketer. So for the last couple of years at Jupiter, we've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort trying to figure out what's going on in social marketing, trying to figure out what marketers are doing, what has been successful, and to try and create some rules or some advice for how to make social marketing more successful. We've done that through executive surveys. We've done that through consumer surveys. We spent a lot of time on social networks and within social media sites looking at how brands are using them. And we found some commonalities amongst the campaigns that have been most successful. So I'm going to walk through a few of those today. Now, this is stuff that we just published recently, so you're the first ones to see it, so I hope you guys like it. But number one, the first rule of social marketing is your messages are not going to promote themselves. Now, that might sound logical, but you would be shocked how many marketers I speak to who say, well, we're going to do something on Facebook, or we're going to do something on MySpace, or wherever it is, and we'll just put it out there. And maybe we'll seed it with a handful of consumers, people who we know like our products. Maybe we won't seed it at all, but we think that viral effect is going to drive our campaign. And the reality is, in the vast majority of cases, that simply isn't going to work. Intel did a campaign at the end of last year, from October through December last year, on MySpace in 6 European countries called Intel Powers Music. If you haven't seen it, go to myspace.com/intelpowersmusic. It's actually a really cool website, and what they did was they ran a big contest to find the best unsigned musicians on MySpace. It was really good. They had people interacting, coming back and forth. It was a very successful campaign overall. But they learned something. They knew something that a lot of marketers don't know. They knew that they had to run paid ads, right? They knew that they couldn't just put it out there and let viral do all the work. But they said, well, let's put it out there, run all of our ads up front, and then once we run those ads the first couple of weeks, then people will know about us. We'll have a lot of friends on our page. Viral's going to take care of the rest. Well, the problem is, viral didn't take care of the rest. You can see really clearly that the weeks where Intel ran paid advertising, which are the bars, are the weeks that they got the most friends and the most visits to their page. Those are the lines. We found this pretty cool correlation as well, which is banners and other types of display advertising led to page visits, whereas a message from Tom, the founder of MySpace, sent out a message to everyone in those markets saying, hey, come check out this page. That didn't lead to as many page visits, but it did lead to their highest week in terms of number of new friends. But the point is, they ran all their paid advertising up front. They got all their friends and all their page visits up front. And then for the rest of the campaign, week 4 through week 9, there was almost nothing. There was no paid advertising, and so no one knew to go to the page. The viral impact that they were counting on either didn't happen or just happened for a very short period of time. And then once the ads went away, the users went away also. What we found through our surveys is that 85% of marketers who say they've run a viral campaign told us they found no viral pass-along at all. 85% of marketers who thought that people would pass along their message for them found no one passed along their message. The simple reality is, if you're not promoting this stuff, no one's going to know it exists. And yeah, you're going to hear about the odd campaign that does get a great viral lift. And it does happen, and when it does, it's a beautiful thing. But that only happens less than 15% of the time. The vast majority of the time, if you're not promoting your campaigns, if you're not promoting your social marketing, no one's going to know it exists, and it's simply not going to work very well. The second thing that we learned is that focusing on engagement can double your ROI. Again, this is one that sounds like it should be logical, right? You're in a social network. You're supposed to be social. You're supposed to be engaging users. But what we found when we looked at all those different sponsored pages on the social networks was that most marketers are treating these pages like they're branded microsites. Rambo put a page on MySpace to promote, or the movie studio that produced Rambo put a page on MySpace to promote the film, and it literally looked exactly like you would have expected to see if you'd gone to Rambo.com. It was a big picture of Sylvester Stallone on the left, and a video window on the right to show the preview, and that was it. No interactivity, no games, no contests, nothing at all. And we've seen this over and over and over again. And it seems like a simple mistake, but way too many marketers are making that simple mistake. And so we point out that even really simple forms of engagement and interactivity can be really effective. I'm going to talk about contests. Now, I know contests aren't the end-all and be-all of interactivity. I know there are better things you can do to engage users. But this is something that's really simple, that anyone can do, and that's incredibly effective. And the example I'm going to use is Zappos, because it's a really fun example, but also because Zappos' CEO, Tony Hsieh, uses Twitter to promote the brand, and it really works. People know the brand. People like the brand. He puts a personal face on it. I didn't know until last week that they had 1,600 employees and did $1 billion a year in sales. I thought it was this little operation out of Las Vegas. The reality is, using social marketing has helped them put a personal face on what is really a huge company. But they also do really fun stuff on Twitter as well. This is a contest that they ran on Twitter a couple of weeks ago where they were sitting around eating corn nuts. Those of you who don't know corn nuts, it's a disgusting little snack food that people eat in America sometimes. They were sitting around eating corn nuts, and they said, I wonder how many corn nuts are in one bag. So he tweeted. He said, whoever can guess the number of corn nuts in a bag wins a free pair of shoes. They got a bunch of responses. Someone got it right. They picked the winner. They sat around. Tony himself apparently counted the corn nuts, and this is the photo they put up of them counting corn nuts. He pays for the shoes himself to avoid legal problems and having to go through the lawyers to take care of it all. He does a great job running these contests, and he engages with people. It works for him on Twitter, and we found it works on social networks as well. On average, the pages on social networks that have contests have more than twice as many friends as the pages that don't have contests. Just putting a contest on a page doubled the ROI in terms of number of friends that those pages got. Now, again, it's not the most in-depth advanced form of interaction you've ever seen. Engagement can and should get better than this. But if nothing else, if you're going to be involved in these networks, make sure you're putting up a contest or an entry or asking people to upload photos or something that engages them at least a little bit. You'll be taking better advantage of the platform. You'll look cooler in front of these consumers. And on average, you'll probably get about twice as many friends. And rule number 3 is that if you're not measuring your results, you're wasting your money. And this is something, again, that was simply shocking to us. When we went and looked and found out that more than 3/4 of engagement marketers didn't measure engagement, that the vast majority of engagement marketers didn't measure any kind of brand effects at all, it was a little bit scary, to be honest. Now, I know that the ways that we can measure these things aren't perfect. I know that marketers have to choose between surveys to measure branding, which are really good data, but they're expensive and they're invasive and they're time-consuming, or they can choose technology-based metrics. They measure actions instead of beliefs, but they're really easy to get to, right? You can simply say, how many friends do I have? And that's the metric I've been using today. Or how many people played our game, or how many people entered the contest. Neither of those is perfect. I think that there's a way that we can start putting these together, but it's up to agencies, it's up to publishers and the networks themselves to help the marketers put these together, to say, we're going to pay attention to the survey results, and we're also going to pay attention to what people are doing on the pages, and that's how we're going to figure out how they work together. But aside from all this, no matter how complex or how simple you get, if you're going to be involved in these things, you have to set a goal for yourself, and you have to measure against that goal. It's not going to be perfect. I know that measurement isn't perfect, but if you're not measuring against the goal, you have no idea whether or not you've met your goal. You have no idea whether your campaigns are getting better over time. You have no idea how one brand of yours compares to another brand. I mean, you don't know anything, right? If you're not measuring, you're probably throwing your money away. So that's the third big thing that we've learned so far. So again, I know these aren't revolutionary, groundbreaking ideas. A lot of these are things that when I talk about them, people go, yeah, I would have known it. But at the same time, these are the mistakes that we're seeing the vast majority of marketers make. Most people aren't trying to engage consumers at all on these pages. Most people aren't promoting their social efforts at all, and most people aren't measuring their social efforts at all. You've got to be in there, you've got to do this stuff, and these are 3 things you can do that will greatly increase your chances of running a successful social marketing campaign. So that's my time, these are my contact details, and thank you very much.